Welcome back to this lecture of rights. Going ahead, as the title suggests, we are going to understand human rights. What is human right? Go etymologically. Go etymologically, try to understand what does word mean. This is how you are going to make neurological connections very easily. What is human rights? What is human rights? Basic basic rights which should be given to all human irrespective of their race, race, class, gender, nationality, or anything else like that. Human rights, the basic minimum rights that a human, irrespective of their socio-economic abstractions, should have. Why there was need of human rights? When Hitler killed 5 million Jews, 3 million, 3 to around not 3, around 10 million soldiers died in World War II. 3 to 4 million people died in famines in Bengal, right? All these people died within the time span of 1940 to 1935 to 1945. In 10 years, nearly 20 million people died in just 10 years outside of natural causes. So there was the natural need of human rights which was felt. Right. There was natural need of human rights that was felt. Now now there was natural need. So you see, there was not this scholar. I don't know, I am teaching this 11:30 in the night, so I am uh, a bit not in right mind, but yes, I will get back to it very easily. Human rights was originally conception as given by wife of American President Roosevelt, Eleanor Roosevelt. What Eleanor said and what Eleanor proposed was to give basic minimum rights to all the human across the world. Because Jews died, World War II, a lot of people died. In Bengal famines, a lot of people died. So Eleanor Roosevelt proposed human rights. And she proposed two components of human rights. The first component will be civil political rights. Civil political rights. And second component will be socio-economic and cultural rights. Civil political rights and socio-economic and cultural rights together form International Bill of Rights. International Bill of Rights. Why UDHR? Why UDHR? To protect minorities, to protect marginalized, to protect women, to protect children, to protect old, to protect everyone who is vulnerable. That is the purpose behind Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948, International Bill of Rights. And conception of human rights or the debate on human rights began with Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948. There are some essential features of human rights. Human rights have to be universal, This universal word is going to have big problems. There is a lot of debate on this universal word. What does universal word mean that all humans should have basic minimum rights. But what these basic minimum rights are, there is no consensus on that. There is UDHR, but again, there is a lot of debate. There is UDHR that is there, but still, what acceptance of UDHR is there, it's not very clear, right? Human rights, another feature is equality. Equality means that rights should be given to all irrespective of their race, gender, class, nationality. So rights should be extended to everyone equally, which means that women are equal to men with respect to human rights. This equality between genders is not accepted by Islamic world. It is not accepted by Asian world as well. Human rights are permanent. They have to be there. They are absolute and they are individualistic, which means they belong to an individual. Now, what points of contestation is there? What points of contention is there? It is universality, equality, and individuality. People will fight if human rights are universal. Should there be basic minimum principles which should extend to all of the world? Should there be equality among sexes? There be equality among nationalities? Should there be equality among races? This is also a point of contestation. Then, should there be rights which are individualistic in nature? This is also a point of contestation, right? This is also a point of contestation. Then we have to understand. We have understood that what are human rights. We have to understand influence on human rights as well. Influence on human rights as well, whereby you see people like Locke. Locke gave theory of natural rights, right? Theory of natural rights, whereby he says life, liberty, and property. For him, state is not important, but rights are. Right? Rights are. Why for him state is not important, but rights are? Because his contract suggests that we give only three rights to state, which is legislation, execution, and adjudication. Rest of the rights will be reserved by the citizens. Then Kant is there. Kant talks about dignity. Kant talk about deontology. Basic minimum principles is there, right? Basic minimum. Kant gave basically concept of deontology. Kant talks about universalism, right? Other exponents are also there, right? Hannah Arendt is there. You can write Hannah Arendt on rights. You can write other exponents like let's say Dworkin. You can write Dworkin by saying rights are terms, right? Presently, who have talked about human rights the most? It was Alan Jeworth and Jack Donnelly. Alan Jeworth and Jack Donnelly, analysis of human rights, in their analysis of human rights, say that human rights are not rights in true sense because because there is no enforcer, right? We have seen Hobbes calling Hobbes calling covenant without sorts, right? A law which has no enforcers are covenant without sorts. There is no meaning of such law, right? So, so Alan Goworth and Jock Donnelly say that human rights are covenants without sorts. They have no enforcers. Jack Donnelly and Goworth says that human rights have no basis in law. He says that human rights are not legal rights, but human rights are moral rights. They have exposed one paradox in human rights as well, whereby they have says there is a paradox in enforcement of human rights, whereby human rights limit power of state, and state has to enforce human rights as well. There is paradox. It limits power of state, but it also state also has to enforce them. That is the basic idea behind human rights, whereby human rights are universal, permanent, absolute, individualistic, and equal. Alan Goworth and Jack Donnelly says that these rights are not rights; they are moral rights because they have no enforcer. The state which is enforcing such rights is the state is the is is also limited by human rights. So there is this paradoxical situation. Hannah Arendt also criticizes human rights by saying that most important right is right to have rights. This human rights concept is going to be seen in international relations theory as well. We are going to see human rights again in international relations theory, whereby we'll try to see through lens of international relations. For now, we will move to we'll move to the criticisms of human rights. For now, we'll move to criticisms of human rights, and we'll start with Asian values debate. This is the first criticism faced by human rights theory. What is Asian value debate? Asian value debate, it is a perspective by Islamic world against UDHR. Islamic or Asian world against UDHR. Who were the big exponents of this theory or this perspective? The first person is Mahathir Mohamad. Mahathir Mohamad. He was a premier politician. He was a PM or president of Malaysia, whereby Mahathir Mohamad says, by principles of universality and equality, what HR is, what human rights is basically cultural imposition of West. West is trying to impose its value of individualism, of autonomy of self, of liberty, of equality on East. Human rights are ethnocentric to liberalism, ethnocentric, and they propagate superiority of Western culture. So Mahathir Mohamad is absolutely against human rights because he thinks that human rights are cultural imperialism, cultural imposition of West. Then there is Lee Kuan Yew. He was premier of Singapore, a very prudent, a very important statement. If you have to understand administration and clearing up the mess, read about Lee Kuan Yew. He has changed Singapore from a place of poverty. You know where Singapore is right now, and man behind that is Lee Kuan Yew. And Lee Kuan Yew, with respect to and in criticism of human rights theory, says that Asian values are better suited in Asia, not Western values. Very simple, not really hard to understand. What are Asian values? Right? What are Asian values? Asian values, the first thing that is there in Asia, that we Asians or Asia as a whole is very community driven. We are we see ourselves as part of community. For us, community is important than our individual self. We see ourselves as part of a particular community. For our individual self is not that important, but our community is more important. Then, because we see ourselves as part of community, for us, social solidarity become more important, right? What is social solidarity and what are the values of social solidarity? There is duty towards our community, duty towards religion, discipline is more important than rights of individual, liberty of individual, choice of individual. Asian values are better suited in Asia. Asian values like community, social solidarity, duty, discipline are more important in Asia. What Asian values are based on? They are based on Confucianism. Who was Confucian? Right? Confucian was a Chinese thinker, Chinese philosopher. He has a place like Kautilya. Confucian basically wrote Art of War. Right? He has wrote Art of War, very monumental book with respect to international relations. So Confucianism. What qualities Confucianism have, or what qualities does Confucianism gives priority to? uh, Things like hard work, things like teamwork, things like frugality and discipline. What is frugality? Frugality is basically being cheap. It is basically being cheap, right? If you have 10 rupees, will save 8 and just spend 2. It is basically cheapness, not spending a lot of money, keeping money for the rainy day, right? And Lee Kuan Yew says that China model of development, which is authoritarian, is better than Indian model, which is which is democratic. He says democracy is like a roadblock in development, and it is somewhat true in India. right? Whenever there is an autocratic government in India, there you see some kind of development happening in India. Whenever there is democracy, whenever there is alliance driven government, right? You coalition government, you see uh, development has taken the back seat and politics takes the front seat. So what Lee Kuan Yew suggests is not really far-fetched. He suggests China model is better than India, right? This this views of Lee Kuan Yew were criticized by Amartya Sen. Amartya Sen, being Indian, did not like whatever Lee Kuan Yew said about India. And Amartya Sen, by being a proud Indian, says that Asia is not homogeneous. Lee Kuan Yew talks about a singular Asian values. Lee Kuan Yew homogenizes all the Asians, says we all are community driven, says we all are followers of Confucian. So Asia is not homogeneous. There is not single values which drives Asia, right? This is said in Development as Freedom. His book is Development as Freedom. And in his second book Argumentative Indian, he defends India, right? He defends India. He says that even though Lee Kuan Yew suggests that in Asia, in Asia, authoritarianism works better. China model works better. And he suggests in Asia, in Asia, authoritarianism is the way to go about it. There is no other political system that can and that will work in Asia. But in Argumentative Indian, Sen says that India has shown tradition of democracy, right? And he says that by saying that Asian values are authoritarian, duty, discipline. He gives values like duty, discipline. He says that Lee Kuan Yew, what basically Lee Kuan Yew is trying to do, he's trying to justify soft authoritarianism within Asia. And he says Lee Kuan Yew, Lee Kuan Yew put this point ahead, whereby Lee Kuan Yew says that China model of development is better, right? China model of development is better. This is China model is better than Indian model. This is what Lee Kuan Yew suggests. And China is more developed today. That is a fact. India is still developing. This difference between India and China was explained by Sen as China model being authoritarian and India model being democratic has no imperative, no cause and effect on their developmental trajectories. India is not developed today, or India is still developing, is not because of democracy, but because of lack of leadership. Because of lack of leadership. This is the basic idea of Asian values debate, whereby Mahathir Mohamad and Lee Kuan Yew tries to justify and give criticism of human rights and justify Asian values, and they were criticized by Lee Kuan Yew was criticized by Amartya Sen in his book Development as Freedom and Argumentative Indian by saying that China model is not better than Indian model. It is basically that India had lack of leadership. Right? This is the first criticism of human rights theory in Asian values debate. The second criticism is cultural relativism. Cultural relativism. Again, we'll try to understand the meaning just by the words. Cultural relativism. Culture and relative. Culture and relative. Cultural relativism of what? Rights, of human rights, right? If you remember communitarian theory of rights, what does communitarian theory of rights say? That with respect to a culture, there should be particular set of rights. Particular culture should have their particular set of rights. That is the exact idea of cultural relativism. Different cultures should have their different set of rights. Exactly this, nothing else. Right should be culturally relative. Human rights should be culturally relative. With respect to different cultures, there should be different set of rights. This was given by Franz Boas and Robert Redfield. These were anthropologists, and both say that both say that culture differ in values. Culture differ in values. When culture differ in values, when culture differ in values, how can how can you impose human rights of Western culture on the cultures which have different rights than West? Against this imposition of cultural against this imposition of human rights by West, he suggests community specific rights. Go back to um go back to multicultural rights of Kimlicka. Go back to differentiated citizenship of Iris Marian Young, whereby both of them say that there should be community specific rights and not the individual specific rights. Community specific rights, not the individual specific rights. This is cultural relativism. That with respect to culture, there should be different set of rights. We should not impose, or West should not impose their conception of human rights on the cultures which don't follow their values. This cultural relativism was later criticized by feminists. Again, what will feminists will say? That cultures are oppressive towards women. Liberals will say, by speaking language of cultural relativism, what you are basically denying, that you are basically denying basic minimum rights to human, right? You are denying basic minimum rights to human, and they say that leave this culture identity, anything like that, just focus on development. And cosmopolitans say that if we give community specific rights, if we give community specific right, then there cannot be interaction between communities and a cosmopolitan culture cannot emerge. That is the idea of human rights. We have finished all the types of rights. I hope this helped, and we have seen all types of rights. We have seen human rights, its criticism as given by Asian Values Debate, Mahathir Mohamad, Lee Kuan Yew, and cultural relativism as explained by Franz Boas and Robert Redfield. This was Rights in Toto. I hope this helped. Thank you so much. I will see you next time with political science as a discipline, because we are finished with all the normative concept of political science. We can understand now. We can understand now what political science as a discipline basically is. Thank you so much. Bye bye.